Hi Lucy, so how would you like to get your eyebrows done today? Have you got any idea?
So I like the hair stroke browns and just filled in a bit more
Yeah.
into the eyebrows.
Okay, so let's have a look. I've got a little bit of anaesthetic cream on here, Lucy. You've had that on for a little while now, so that will make the treatment more comfortable. And I do recommend that you do pre-numb the clients for 20 to 30 minutes before you start the treatment. It's really important when you're working on the face, even if it's just on the eyebrows, you need to really make sure that you cleanse the entire area all over the forehead as well and down to the eye socket. A lot of clients don't like to have their makeup removed, but you know it's very, very important that we do have a really clean base with which to build our permanent makeup on, and we need to keep everything fresh. I put Lucy at probably about a Fitzpatrick 2, and that's really good because the pigments in a typically lighter skin will be very true. So there's very little unlikely that in our ID colours that we would need to actually warm this in Lucy's skin type. So her ID, her colour ID, will be very true to form. Tricky drawing eyebrows, and you know what I would say is, you know, I've done many thousands of procedures in my working career and it never gets easier to draw eyebrows, but there are a few rules that we can follow and a few things that I've got here that should actually help most of the technicians. Okay, so first of all what we need to do is we need to find the midline of your client's face. So I'm going to take one of my pencils. We've got 3 here. We only have 3. These are the ID liner pencils in black, brown and white. They sharpen up really beautifully to a really fine point. I actually prefer to use these than the China markers because I just find them a lot less fiddly, and they're very clean, and also we know they're compatible with the skin. They're made by Faber-Castell in Germany. Okay, so observing and trying to get the midline of the face is probably the most important focal point that we need to do initially when we start doing this. So generally speaking, there are a couple of ways of doing this. One is to actually observe the pupils, although you can have a different spatial distance with pupils in clients' eyes. The other way is to actually pinch here on the nose and just lift up and see where the centre line of that mound is. And there you have perfect centre. Where to start the brow? Could you close your eyes for me? So generally speaking, if you place your thumb without pressing on the eye, about here, you will see the natural, underneath the brow bone, you'll see a natural starting point. And that gives you more or less the perfect start point for your brow. And again, taking it underneath, remember the orbits of the eyes can be completely different on each side. A little bit of copying here to there. Perfect. Okay, so we've got the midline of the face, and again, just to remind you how we got there in the first place, the start point of the brow, how low does the brow come? You'll notice that Lucy's brows are actually quite low, okay? So really important, certainly not to bring them any lower. This is something that I have to work with every single day. You can't work with this. All my technicians work with this as well. It's a brow measure, and we've really done all the hard work for you. So you'll see on the brow measure, we've got the midpoint here. So we're going to line this up with Lucy, and we're going to pop that onto her brows. So taking this off, a little trick that I use is so it doesn't stick into the client's hair, you can just put a little bit of Vaseline or serum or something on the end there. Okay, and we're going to just now reline this up and allow the measure to do all the work for us. Perfect. Don't press too hard at this point. You may need to readjust and realign. So there are so many different ways of doing this. You know, some artists would just do this by looking. Not all of us are that gifted. Also, the good thing about this is if you take a look, Lucy, the client can then see any imperfections or asymmetries herself. She can see if one side is higher, one side is lower, one side is longer. And as you know, as artists, we've all got a flat side and a round side. So they're never going to be perfect because the morphology of the face, the way the skin is over the bone and muscle, is never going to be the same on anyone at any time. And in fact, sometimes if we make the eyebrows look really amazingly perfect and too perfect, the rest of the face sometimes doesn't work. It's got to be harmonious. So the artist must always look for symmetry, but also to make that symmetry harmonious. Okay, so I'm really happy with that now. I think it's really level, so I'm going to ask my client to lie back down again. Okay, so we're 1.1, and that's on our measure. We're going to go to 1.1 this side as well, so we make sure that all of our lines are perfect. I'm now going to look, Lucy, if you could just look up here for me. I'm looking to find the point at the outside of the iris of the eye. Normally it's about 4.5 to 5 centimetres, and in Lucy's case the natural curve here is coming up at about 4.2. I'm going to take that up to, I'm going to take her to 5 there. Okay, so we're going to go to 5. Looking on the other side, and actually the other side's at 5, so that was a great decision. The next thing I'm going to look to do is to decide where I'm going to end the brows. Now, the brows are going to come down from this point. If you take your pencil, the nice thing about, you can feel the groove, so you can feel the brow bone along here. You can feel there's a groove, and that is going to be the area that you're going to work down into. Tiny strokes down here. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got the measurements. We're going to start to create the brow. You turn your client to me. Excellent. Close your eyes. Just going to put a few hair strokes in. I'm loving this client's hair. She's got beautiful curved hairs and they're nice and long, a little bit gappy. These are going to be a perfect combo brow, and I feel that the best way of doing the permanent makeup for these brows would be to do some soft microblading and also probably use the device for some of it as well. So we're going to do a combination, a hybrid method. We're going to link up here now. I'm going to start to draw just so that we've got a nice smooth line and start to curl it around the natural arch of the brow. Observe how the hair falls. Okay, so we're going to look at the thickness of the brows. Again, we're going to use our measure, and this is where it's really, really useful. You can see this immediately. So I really want to keep the thickness of these brows. I don't want to go inside it. They're really pretty perfect. And I normally tell people when they're drawing this part of the brow to try and keep the line quite straight. And you're going to take it straight up to high point 5. So straight up to high 5. Perfect. Okay, now what we've got to do is try and replicate this on the other side, which is where it gets a little tricky, but where your brow measure is going to be really invaluable for you. What I really love about these pencils is that the white one is going to give me a demarcation line, so I'm going to get a really, really good skillet to secure my shape. And I really love these because not only can you get a really crispy point on them, which is essential for accuracy, but they do squeeze. You can squeeze the end of these pencils, little tiny short backwards and forwards movements. You know, really what you need when you're working in permanent makeup, there's so many variables you don't know. You don't know if the skin's gonna bleed. You don't want to be losing your shape. You know, your pre-planning is so important, and actually your pre-planning is kind of part of your contract with your client, because that's what she's agreed to. She likes the shape, you've agreed to do that, so you can't kind of make up what you're doing because you've lost the shape. So these white pencils really are quite invaluable. It should be in every toolkit. Do recommend giving these to the clients afterwards. You shouldn't be reusing your pencils. You should be putting them into their go-home bag or disposing of them appropriately. And a nice thing also about this particular pencil is that it's just got the right amount of softness, yet retains its hardness as well, that I can just get a really beautiful stencil. Everything really crisp and good. And coming back now, I'm going to just mark the beginning of the eyebrow. And this is the area where it's going to start. Same thing the other side. Observing all the time that you are definitely equidistant. You've got the symmetry, the best symmetry you can achieve in any case. Tiny, tiny little motions with this. Try and stay on the tip, stay on point. So we call it in the academy, we stay on point with our needle, we stay on point with our blades, we stay on point with our pencils as well, because everything needs to be crisp and clean. I'm going to put now a hairnet on. Any kind of bandana or hairnet or anything that you use on here is obviously there for hygiene reasons, but you don't want to be using anything too tight on the forehead because it can stretch the forehead, it can stretch your canvas. So you want it nice and loose, but just to do the job it's there for. I'm going to cover my client up as well. And I'm going to cover myself up. So now what I'm going to do is just to take some of the extra hairs away. I really like these little disposable brow razors because everything should be about preserving the hair growth. Very gently, I'm just going to take off the ones that are outside my skillet, keeping everything tiny, tiny movements. And often take away from the centre line. Lucy's eyebrows grow really a long way in, and for the purposes at least of today, I'd prefer to remove them so that I can see the shape that I'm trying to achieve. Looking at the colours now, I've already assessed, and I really think Lucy, as I said, is going to be in the mid-range. So we've got a mid-cool, and we've also got mid-warm as well. These two colours here are kind of in the mid-range. They're going to work really, really well with Lucy's base colour too. So let's just test it. Let's just test these on the skin and see where we're at. I have already selected the colour that I think is going to be right. So we're just going to, a little bit of colour here. Just a thin amount on the skin. Rub it into the skin so you can see how that works. You can see that's going to work really, really nicely. So that's your mid-cool brown. Comparably, we're going to go on to the slightly warmer version. Got a nice easy dispenser. You can see there's a long nozzle here. Put that there on purpose so that we could actually dispense tiny amounts of pigment at a time. If you're in doubt, always assume your client has cool undertones and go for a colour that will work for them. Both of these colours work really, really well, but actually when you've got it on the skin, for me, what works better is the mid-warm brown. So this is the colour that I'm going to select to use.